SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. Middays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Everyone, and welcome to Middays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday Eve.
All right, so they're having a little budgetary problem up there in New York City with the socialist mayor, Zoran Mamdani. So he's calling for raising.
He's had budgeting problems since he got elected.
That's true.
He had to fundraise for his transition team.
Yeah, that's right. I'm telling you, this is so predictable. But I started out with this because you were just sharing with me that he's got a custom article of clothing now that he is.
Oh yeah, his winter wear is a customized Carhartt with the fancy city of New York and the script on the chest there, and on the sleeve he's got mayor, and inside the collar he has what I'm pretty sure is the Paw Patrol motto: "No problem too big, no task too small." Although I don't have kids, I've only been tangentially exposed to Paw Patrol, but that's what popped in my head.
Oh my gosh! Well, he is, of course, imploring the city council and the city government there. We got to raise the taxes and get more money from the billionaires. They got like a $10 billion shortfall in the budget. Now they're 8 million people in the city of New York, I believe, is roughly the population. So think about that. Here in the state of Mississippi, we have just under
8.5 million.
Okay, 8.5. Just under 3 million people. So the city of New York nearly 3x the state of Mississippi in terms of population. They have a $10 billion shortfall. What the heck is the budget for New York? I bet it's $100 billion. And just for comparative purposes, the state's is $7 billion. For our 3 million.
The adopted fiscal year 2026 budget for New York City is $120 billion.
Oh, I missed it by 20. Excuse me. $120 billion for a city of 8 million. Okay, so you see where I'm going with this. If, based on the population, if our state budget were triple, because that's roughly what New York's population is relative to Mississippi's population, extrapolate. Triple our state budget. That'd be $21 billion. These guys are 121. Now, I know there's probably some other stuff they spend money on that we don't. It's still, though, it's worth noticing how insane that is. Because that also does.
Aren't they one of the only cities that still has to have like an entire sector of steam workers?
I don't know. Steam workers?
Yeah, because that was a utility offered at the turn of the 20th century was, hey, we got this factory over here that's pumping out steam. We'll pipe it into your building for you to heat your building.
Oh, Lord, gotcha.
That's why in all the movies in New York you got the smokestacks that are just like 8-10 feet tall and they're steaming.
That's right.
That's why. It's because you got to let the steam off.
I didn't know that. Oh, well, that makes sense. Well, we're digressing a bit. Yesterday, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, he announced that interest rates would remain in place as they are. And that was another one of those just fascinating, riveting. Oh, man, it's incredible. Speeches by the chairman. And then, of course, it's always interesting to hear all of the reporters from the media throw questions at him. And many of the questions were about his remaining on as the chairman. And he did right in saying, I'm not here to talk about that today. Of course, we know he's out of there. He will not be reappointed by the president. The president has announced his 4 finalists. We reviewed those with you yesterday. One of those is Kevin Hassett. He's the president's chief economic advisor, and he continues to say, he's too good at what he does. I don't want to lose him, but I don't know. Does he have a possible plan to appoint Hassett as Fed chairman and then succeed him with somebody that would do the job well to his liking? I don't know. We'll just see where all that goes. I do know this. The markets are in sell-off mode. It's a grim day on the corner of Wall and Broad. The Dow presently down nearly 600 points. It has been down as much as 688 in today's session. The funny money, Rhino, down to 84 grand again, down almost 5,000 today. The NASDAQ is actually down precipitously as well. So it's just a bad day overall. By the way, something else to pay attention to, folks, crude oil. I told you. It's $65 again. It's up 2 and change today. It's just volatile, man. And it's geopolitical stuff. There are a lot of concerns about this country moving into Iran and disrupting the flow of oil. We've got apparently significant military assets and presence in the region because we really don't know how many people this evil, brutal regime is slaughtering just because they don't want to live under that sort of life that regime wants to impose on them. Sadly, there are many people in this country that support that ideology. I'm not saying Iran specifically, but that system. Oh, yeah, that's great. We need to convert to that. I mean, it's this embrace of socialism and authoritarianism, even communism, is deeply disturbing to me, especially our young folks who, by the way, in a recent poll are now moving into the unfavorable category of our president. And that's a concern as well. In latest polls, they're showing that they're not big fans of the president, and his polls are cratering in that respect, in that demographic. Many are saying they regret their vote for Trump. Here's the problem, as you know, Rhino. It's the incumbency that I talk about all the time. You don't know what it would have been like with the alternative. That they can't fathom it. They're so accustomed to, honestly, such a high quality of life relative to alternatives, relative to other countries, relative to alternative political figures in charge. It's just the bullet we dodged, regardless of what you think about this president. And I acknowledge I don't agree down the line with every single policy. I've been clear on that. But eons better than the alternative. And what would have happened, my gosh, had it been Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, what the country would have looked like. I know this for sure. We're looking at the largest refunds ever during tax season here with April 15th being the due date. Many already probably have sufficient data to go ahead and file their tax returns, and soon will be receiving refunds. They've probably already seen that in preparing their tax return. Forget about that. That would not have happened. You would have been paying more. They don't want to admit that, but had we reverted to the old Obama-era tax rates, which is what would have happened, had the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, also known as now as the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, they just don't understand that. They don't appreciate it. They don't realize it. They've never had to deal with it. The NASDAQ now down 500 points. Microsoft, the big drag. I'll get to that later. They had a huge quarter, but their guidance was a little tepid, and man, investors are selling off. It's down 11% today, about $50 a share, and that has got the NASDAQ really trending in the red big time. It's a buying opportunity, hint, hint. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, it's the Commissioner of the Mississippi Insurance Department, Mike Chaney. Stay with us.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard.
Good for America. Good for fans of justice and truth. Good for us.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
This is what we stand for.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now the Commissioner of the Mississippi Insurance Department, also serves as the State Fire Marshal. That's Commissioner Mike Chaney. Hey, Commissioner, thanks for coming on today.
Good morning, Gerard and Rhino. I want to start out by saying we've had a lot of fire deaths during this ice storm and power out and people misusing extension cords and heaters, and it's just unfortunate. And we have, we have law enforcement agencies. We're one of them because we have 27 guys that are bona fide law enforcement folks. And it's pretty tough when you're out inspecting all the deaths that are occurring. So first thing I would say is be very careful during an ice storm of how you use your heaters. Be careful with extension cords and open flames. Don't try to heat your house by using your stove. And look, we've got a 22-year-old killed in a house fire in Jefferson County. We're assisting Alabama with house fires out of Tishomingo County. We've got deaths in Tate County. And if you read I don't know if I want to hold this up to the camera, Gerard, but this is my look this morning at all the things I had to read just on fire deaths and all the things that are going on. So be careful out there. It's a tough world. And we're out on the insurance side. We're trying to look and see if we can get all of our adjusters in the areas that have been hit the hardest. Oxford is in bad shape. I will say this. Oxford's very fortunate that they got good leadership in Rodham Tannehill. You've got good people in Oxford. I think they'll recover. The Grove may look different with all the broken trees. And we've been working with a lot of the citizens and businesses in Oxford. We can't even get some of our people in Oxford. It's so bad. But we have people on the ground there that have helped us. And we got drone footage. And the main thing we want to be sure of that the university campus was okay. And it was okay for the students to stay on campus. And that's worked out pretty well. I would say that if you got a leaking fire hydrant at your house, turn your water off at the meter so you don't run all the water out. And you help the city try to rebuild the water supply. We got another freeze coming, so be prepared for that. You got to have water and electricity to keep the quality of life up anyway up there, and that's going to be pretty tough.
So tell us about that, Commissioner. Exactly how do these two organizations, the Department of Insurance, and of course it's really not two organizations, but you serving as the State Fire Marshal in your role, as the Commissioner of Insurance. How are you involved and engaged, your team, with this weather situation? I mean, you've already told us about these horrific, tragic deaths that have occurred as a result of the weather and just mishaps in their homes and so forth. What other activities is your team involved in?
Well, we do cover with the law enforcement side and the Fire Marshal Division. We just don't talk about what we do. We're not trying to do photo ops. We're not out delivering water out of the back of a pickup, getting a picture made. We carry water for folks that need it in emergencies. But our job is to protect lives and protect the people and make sure they're safe. That's the first order of business. Same thing MEMA would do. We work very closely with MEMA. I know there's been a lot of things said about the government hasn't done enough during this crisis, but I will tell you that it's hard to help folks if you can't get in because of into an area to help them because the roads are blocked from sightseers, and that's not what you need. What you need is for people to stay in place, get secure, and let the National Guard, the first responders do all the things they need to do. And you know, we do have the first responders, Gerard. We've got a lot of volunteer firefighters, somewhere between 8,000 to 14,000 folks at work, and a lot of those are working in Lafayette County, trying to help the city out and the county. And they need a lot of help. We're up there. We just can't talk about some of the stuff that we're doing. Our job is to help secure the area and work with local law enforcement and the first responders.
So, Commissioner, of course, many Mississippians are experiencing property losses as a result of the storm, and their property insured for the most part. Most folks have that either on their automobile, their home, their business, and so forth. What do they need to know as they contact their insurer about filing claims for the damages caused by the storm?
Well, from what we see from the aerial footage that we've taken with the drones, a lot of roof damage in Oxford, and we'll have adjusters in. Our job will probably start Sunday or Monday with the adjusters to get them in. We want to get past this freeze. The first thing we want to say to folks, you can fix your property to keep it out of harm's way, but don't go out and hire folks that say, I can remove this tree for cash price, pay me up front. Don't do that. There's so many scam artists that will come out and take advantage of you. If I had my way when they do this, I'd put them all under the jailhouse. They're the worst crooks you can find. They take your money, especially on the elderly folks that have very few people that they know that can come help them, and they'll take their money and disappear, and they still got the problem right there in the front yard. So don't pay up front. Make sure somebody's bona fide. Check with a neighbor. Get some references. We got an 800-1-800-562-2957 if you have insurance problems. But we will have people on the ground again Sunday and Monday. We're not quite at the point that we need what you call an insurance village. That's where all the companies are in one location. We're trying to avoid that. That sometimes that creates mass chaos because everybody's trying to get to one place. We want the adjuster to be on the ground with the folks that are trying to protect their home and their property. First thing, though, is protect the life and make sure the people are taken care of.
Commissioner, has your office been in touch with any of the more popular insurers in our state that are going to have to obviously mobilize and respond to these claims? Is there any need for any engagement at this point?
We have been in touch with them. That's the first thing we normally do. We use some software. Actually, I think you're kind of familiar with it. Something called Crisis Tracker, where people can self-report things. And we got a pretty good idea of the damage firsthand. And I will have to say this: the wireless networks like C Spire and AT&T have done a great job of keeping things up. Can't say that about some of the others, but that's helped us a lot and helped MEMA a lot, helped the governor's office understand what the damages are and how you can get there. Sometimes the press does not understand what we do, and we just don't have time to sit down with the press and try to explain how things work. We've got a job to do, and we're going to do it. And you've got to take care of the people that are in Oxford and Lafayette County. Also, throughout the Delta, we got some pretty rough damage in Tate County. We got some rough damage across all the way to the river and up to Memphis and down. Vicksburg, has a lot of damage. That's where I live. I had trees down. I live off the road pretty far. I had 36-inch trees down, and I cut a lot of them up late yesterday afternoon. Had people that came over and volunteered and helped us just so I could get out of my driveway. And I had to do that the other day. I got 3 or 4 ways to get out of the property, but I understand the damage. I'm living it, and I was without power too, as the power lines have been broken down. I was out early this morning meeting with some of the power folks about what they say. What you try to do is prevent fires and people misusing electrical energy by running an extension cord to the neighbor who doesn't have power. You can't do that. Pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
I don't feel like telling you all the things I ought to be telling you, but some things we just can't talk about. Heating equipment and all the things that we do to try to help those areas outside of Oxford. We've got a lot of folks, Ryan Blakeney from our office, who Consumer Division will be up in the Rolling Fork area later this week. He actually has a sister that lives in Oxford, so that's how we get a lot of the detail. We've got folks all the way up into Grenada County. Greenville's got some problems. Greenwood's got problems. And you take Lexington and Holmes County. They had to, it sounds funny, but the insurance commissioner gets involved in moving all of those patients. They had to move them out of the hospital because they had no power and move them down to the Jackson area. And the edge of that line of freeze stopped kind of north of Madison and the Bolton area. So Jackson escaped most of the damage. But we get involved in the transportation, the cost, the reimbursement on the insurance side. So it's pretty complicated on how insurance works through there. Sure. You're kind of familiar with it. It's not. We try to do the job and take care of the people that elected us to do the job that we do.
Sure. Commissioner Mike Chaney of the Mississippi Insurance Department also is our state's fire marshal. Commissioner, thanks so much for joining us this morning and providing an update. And once again, folks just need to really stay safe out there. We don't want to see any more fatalities as a result of this storm. We've already marked too many. Appreciate it, Commissioner.
Yeah. And Gerard, it's not just Warren County and up to Tate County. We've got people on the border in Tennessee, up in Tishomingo. One of the fires occurred just right across the line. We're assisting Alabama in their investigations. It's tragic to see someone die needlessly because he didn't heed the warnings that we try to tell them.
Yeah.
Don't use extension cord, don't get around open flames, and don't try to bring a gas heater into the house to light a house.
Amen.
Good advice.
Thank you, sir.
Gerard Gibert. He keeps his classified documents right where they belong. Inside a Journey record jacket from the 1980s. Gerard Gibert. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Are you thinking about retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. And, man, today do you ever need it? By the way, I reported the NASDAQ and Dow backwards. I conflated those. My apologies. Typically, you do see a bigger sell-off on the Dow, but in this case, you've got a huge sell-off on the NASDAQ, and all the red ink on the Dow is being driven by Microsoft. But because Microsoft is selling off after announcing earnings yesterday, so did Meta, by the way. Today, it's Apple. And because of that, the other stocks in that sector sold off, and thus the NASDAQ is down. Now, yesterday, this is incredible. Microsoft actually had a very strong quarter and beat both top and bottom line. revenue of $81 billion. That's a $325 billion run rate for the year. But for the quarter, $81 billion. That's about $1 billion more than forecast. And their earnings per share, $4.14 adjusted versus $3.97 expected. So 17 cents better in the EPS category. This is what got my attention, though, Rhino. This is something I like to talk about. They generated $38 billion of quarterly profit. Now, it turns out that is the third largest quarter ever reported by a public company in the U.S., based in the U.S. And the top two, I get curious about this stuff, thinking that has got to be a record. When I saw that, sitting at the $38 billion for the quarter, and I always think, man, that's got to be a record. So it turns out that it's not. It's actually 38 billion. I had it right. Yep, 38.46. So the top two, 58.7 in a quarter for Fannie Mae in 2013. And then Berkshire Hathaway, and that, of course, from the Oracle, of Omaha, $39 billion in 2021. And Microsoft comes in third, and then you got, I think Apple comes in there, Alphabet in the $30 billion range, NVIDIA close to that. What else you see?
Berkshire Hathaway's got a majority of the top 10.
I'm not surprised.
Well, not a majority, right at half. They got number 2. They had number 3, so now they have number 4.
Wow.
And they have 6, 7, and 8. With the new number 3, Apple would have had number 5, number 9, and number 10.
Wow. So, and I know I've talked about Apple a lot because they were the first company to ever produce $100 billion in a year of net income. Microsoft, though, with this blowout quarter. However, they came in and said, we're going to spend even more money, by the way, on our AI technology and solutions build-out. And their cloud growth. I mean, this is how crazy things are. Their cloud growth was like 30%, quarter over quarter. And the investment community said, wow, that's actually down about 1% from the prior quarter over quarter. Boop, we're selling. And so it's down, last I checked, about $55 a share, 11%. Massive sell-off, all because of that. Now, the smart money, if you got the stomach for it, right, says buy on this dip. Buy on this dip because this thing is going to stay around for a long time, and they are going to monetize, and they are now. I mean, they're making $39 billion. By the way, that $39 billion, based on United Healthcare's terrible year, from a profitability perspective, Microsoft in this quarter made more than the top 10 health insurance companies in the country in a year. That comes in at about $35 billion for the year. And Microsoft made $39 in the quarter. If they continue at that run rate, you can do the math. That will be the largest profit ever in a year at some $150 billion on revenue of $320. That's a 50% net income compared to the insurance industry's 3%. Of course, there are no industries that are generating that sort of net income percentage. But
Fannie Mae had the largest corporate quarterly earning.
Yeah.
they have the second largest corporate quarterly loss as well.
I don't doubt it. I mean, it was all a matter of timing is the way that worked out. No doubt. I mean, that's incredibly volatile.
Eclipsed only by AIG, American International Group, the insurance people.
I remember that one.
People.
Phew. Yeah, that was big time. It's just interesting. And, of course, the president yesterday, I guess it was 2 days ago, in Iowa, delivering his remarks, touting his economic accomplishments and his future economic agenda. Yesterday, of course, we talked about the Trump accounts with Mr. Joseph Livornia from the Department of Treasury. The president is really making the case. He's trying to deliver the message to the American people that his policies are in their best interest.
And Visa made an announcement about the Trump accounts.
What did they say?
They are going to allow their customers to apply any of their rewards.
Oh, that's cool.
To the Trump accounts.
Great idea. Congratulations, Visa. Brilliant. I like that. Yeah, man.
So you can get your air miles, or you can put that money in a Trump account.
So I like that. Now, just so you'll know, those contributions are not tax-free. You don't deduct that. What you're doing is you're helping a child, a newborn, build a little wealth, which, as it accumulates, is tax-free until they withdraw it, and it depends on what they withdraw it for. So,
and if you do the math and extrapolate it out for the length of the account, or the average length, because most people are going to use it as soon as they can, you would imagine.
Yeah.
If it's just the bare bones amount that's been seeded at the start of the Trump account, when the child turns 18, they'll have $15,000, $20,000 in there. If the child has maximum deposits to the Trump account allowed by law over the course of 18 years, you're looking at $330,000 to $350,000.
Exactly what Mr. Livornia shared with us yesterday. And so, just to clarify, the family can contribute $5,000 a year, and the employer of the parent of the child who received the $1,000 Trump account, $2,500 a year are the rules. But a random person, right? I think that's the case because you were talking about rewards. Is that credited to the employer and part of the, you see what I'm saying?
No, it would be if you are a parent of a child with a Trump account, you can apply your rewards to the Trump account.
I got you. So you're using your $5,000. Okay, that makes sense. Perfect. Thank you for explaining that. So I got a theory about that. I love it. I think it's a brilliant idea. So, the president announced a week or so ago that he wanted the credit card companies to cap interest rates, right? In fact, we're going to talk to Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association. Might this be a bit of a response to that? Hey, Mr. President, we're going to allow our rewards program to be used to contribute to something that you really promoted and championed, and that's these Trump accounts. Just a theory of how that stuff works. But I love it. We talked yesterday about Bank of America saying they're going to play with their employees. And there's a long list of other companies, just like Mr. Livornia said yesterday. He named off several and said, I don't want to leave any out, but I think you'll see more and more and more adoption. Now, I have an idea I'd like to add to that, Rhino. And that's something we could do at the state level, right? Why don't we figure out some way that employers or even individuals could get some sort of tax benefit at the state level? Because we still have an income tax. It's 4% this year of all taxable income over $10,000. Hey, legislators, help out here. Let's do something to promote this with respect to state income tax treatment. Coming right back.
Hello.
We interrupt this program.
Gerard Gibert.
Here we go.
This is huge news.
Huge news.
You need to listen to this.
MidDays with Gerard. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Well, since my baby left me, well, I found a new place to dwell. Well, it's down at the end of Lonely Street, that Heartbreak Hotel where I'll be just so lonely, baby. Well, Well, I'm so lonely. I'll be so lonely I could die. Although it's always crowded, you still can find some room for broken-hearted lovers to cry there in the gloom. I'll be so lonely, baby. I'll be so lonely. I'll be so lonely.
So, I just got to kind of close the loop on this Microsoft story because I'm still just astonished at $39 billion of net income. And so I talked about this on my social media, and there's one individual out there that follows me and likes to comment, and he always promotes this narrative. He says he's not a Democrat, but he promotes the narrative of they got to pay their fair share of taxes. You know, they love. That's the first thing they think about. They don't pay their people anything, and they've got to pay their fair share of taxes. And they're wrong on both counts. I have worked with a lot of Microsoft folks in the past. I have hired people that work for Microsoft. I've lost people to Microsoft that work for my company. I can assure you they pay market wages, and it's six figures. Now, I'm not saying everybody in the company makes that. I haven't researched that. But all the sorts of people we dealt with, and they've got thousands of them, an engineer for Microsoft is a $150K job entry level, up to $400,000 or $500,000 a year. I would say that's pretty good wages. Also, they paid about $20 billion of income taxes last year. Is that not enough? You know the answer to that, Rhino. No, it's never enough. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the figure is. That would never please them, and that's all they ever think about. Of course, they happily use their technology, do they not, to promote their message. And even those that say, I'm not using it, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand how much of that stuff is behind the scenes that power. You're shaking your head. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's what just grinds my gears, is that you're out there using their tools and denigrating them, condemning them at the same time.
I mean, even if you are cash only, like you only walk around with cash, you don't even have a debit card. Do you have a bank account?
Right.
Take the cash out of? Do you use an ATM? Do you talk to the teller that's using a terminal?
Right. All the above. 100%. I just think it's great. I think it's fascinating. Speaking of Trump derangement syndrome, it's reached a new level. You see, there's a Democrat Ohio Attorney General candidate, Elliot Foran. He says quite explicitly he's going to, quote, kill Donald Trump if he's elected. It's just unbelievable. I mean, I want to tell you what I mean when I say that I'm going to kill Donald Trump. This guy was a former Ohio state representative. I mean, I'm going to obtain a conviction rendered by a jury of his peers at a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, based on evidence presented at a trial conducted in accordance with the requirements of due process, resulting in a sentence duly executed of capital punishment. Oh, my gosh. These people are wackos. And this guy
has to be to believe the nonsense they believe.
And they do. But yet, crickets from the left. This is one of their candidates. This is a Democratic candidate running for Attorney General to be the top law enforcement officer of the great state of Ohio.
I'm trying to figure out why that name sounds familiar. I think he's been in hot water for running his mouth in the past.
I wouldn't doubt it. Meanwhile, down there in Cuba, they're about to turn the lights off down there. They've got, it is being reported, about 15 to 20 days of oil left. And the president's turning the screws, and this is all because of what happened in Venezuela. And if folks, if you've ever seen any sort of images of the streets of Cuba, Rhino, tell them about the the date range models of the vehicles on the streets in Cuba.
Oh, there's tons of early to mid 50s Chevys and Fords and Pontiacs. They're mostly well taken care of. There's a few rust buckets, but the reason they're well taken care of is because that's all they got.
That's right. Oh, that communism's great, isn't it? Oh, my gosh.
Like they have trains from the late 1800s that they've had to keep running.
Unbelievable. Well, they're about to be parked if they don't figure something out, which means they need to come to the table and negotiate in good faith and terminate the communism that's ravaged that country. And you know there are numerous immigrants in this country, legal immigrants from Cuba, who have shared their experiences and stories. Isn't that enough? I guess not. We don't learn, do we?
Well, I mean, the left loves to talk about lived experiences unless it flies in the face of their BS narratives.
Fox News, SuperTalk News coming your way, an hour of middays. At the top of the noon hour, it's Gordon Fellows with the Mississippi Bankers.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday Eve.
All right, so once again, we've got Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association, calling into the program at 12:05. Yeah, the NASDAQ now down 425, paring its losses a tad. The Dow down 65. Investors a bit rattled with Microsoft's report yesterday, although they made only $39 billion. Incredible. But ain't good enough. That's just the way that rolls. Could be a buying opportunity, is what I would say. On the C Spire text line, what are your thoughts on what would happen without the Fed, Mike in Gulfport? I need about 3 hours to talk about that, Mike. It's a good question, though. I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not in the camp that thinks that the Fed is just the cause of all kinds of bad financial outcomes. I'm also not a big fan of the way they operate, but I do agree that they should remain independent. And I think personalities and opinions and sometimes politics get in the way. I know you're shocked at that. And I cannot excuse the fact that Jerome Powell, the Fed chairman, I do believe cut rates right before the election to prop up. I really do. Biden and the Democrats, because the conditions now are actually more favorable for a rate cut than they were then. So he can't. And I know he likes to, just repeat the party line. I listened to his whole thing yesterday, and I get it. They have what's called a dual mandate, stable pricing, which means, hey, don't let inflation get out of control, and optimum employment, which means make sure that people got jobs. That's really what that means. And they have a couple of tools to do that, called monetary policy. By the way, that's distinguished from fiscal policy. That would be the laws that Congress passes that affect the economy, such as taxes and spending, regulations, and affect economic activity. In the case of the Fed, they're separate. They've got two main tools. One is they set benchmark interest rates and lots of other interest rates that affect consumers, mortgages, automobile loans, business loans, etc., are all tied to that. And then the other thing they have is what's called the operations, open operations there, open market operations. That just means they can buy and sell bonds It's really what it means more than anything. They can actually order the Treasury. It's convoluted relationship to so-called print money. So that's what they have. It's just that really drives or affects, influences the supply of money. And money, just like any other commodity, does adhere to the rules of demand and supply. So more supply out there, that drives the cost of money down. More demand, that drives the cost of money up. Simple as that. So they do have some tools, as they like to call it, along those lines. And I listened to his speech yesterday, and honestly, I don't know how long he spoke, 20 minutes or so. I didn't get anything out of it. But that's not unusual because they sort of talk in code, and they stay away from anything that would be too significant and impactful. They kind of thread the needle there. I do think that we could stand a rate cut. He did make it clear that the 2.7 inflation that seems to be just sticking at that level is above their target of 2%. But he also indicated he thought that the job market was really sort of moderate. It's not really bad, not really good, not just booming, but there are lots of announcements this week, as a matter of fact, of some job reductions and eliminations. Amazon, 16,000. They have announced mostly from back office operations, just trying to trim some of their cost there. 16,000 workers in their latest announcement of cuts. They're also automating the heck out of their facilities and requiring less human talent to just operate out in the field. Another company that announced that they were going to shed people that does affect us here in Mississippi is Nike. And Nike said 750 people would be removed from their payroll, and that is expected to affect Mississippi and Tennessee, I believe, where they have distribution facilities. So that's going on. And then Pinterest says they're going to lay off 15% because of their AI investment, 15% of their global workforce. I don't know how many people work for Pinterest and how many jobs specifically would be affected there, but 15%. You know, there was also, Rhino, right after COVID...
A little less than 5,000 people.
Okay, so that's another 750. So after COVID, there was kind of a rush to go out by a lot, even small employers, because now small employers are starting to say, you know, we got enough here. Great article in the Wall Street Journal concerning that. But I think that there was such a problem after COVID that, small employers who were shuttered to a great extent came back and really boned up and beefed up their workforces, and I think now they're finding maybe we sort of overdid it. By the way, the Dow, the company, the chemical giant, is expected to also cut, just announced today, 4,500 jobs, again, in their AI overhaul. There's also been some great pieces done that I've studied in the last few days, one in particular from The Economist, and also an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal about AI and its impact on the workforce. But they made a great point, did this writer in the Wall Street Journal, Stephen Lewayne. He says, we're planning for the wrong AI job disruption. If artificial intelligence takes over some of your tasks, that doesn't render you unemployable. I couldn't agree more. And he makes the point, and I watched this my entire business career in the IT world, move up the food chain. So it's not like that, okay, we're going to automate. I mean, just thinking about in the early days of automation, Rhino, when we were automating transaction systems. I've discussed this before. Everybody's got that automated today. When's the last time you bought anything? I don't care if it's online. Of course, if it's online, this would apply. But even in a retail store that didn't have an automated system, a computerized automated system for their point of sale, for their retail transactions, highly tailored, customized for that business. All that's been developed and perfected over the last 30, 40 years. But in the early days, oh man, if we're going to implement that system there, that means we don't need this person and that person, this person. I would always stop and say, no, that's not the case. You need to redeploy them to more valuable tasks. Move up the food chain, as we like to say. And that's exactly what this writer says, and I totally concur. Set a paralegal's job, for example, which includes summarizing depositions, reviewing contracts, organizing discovery, may appear as highly exposed to AI. But automating these first-pass document reviews doesn't eliminate their job. It reorganizes it. So instead of spending all your time on document scanning, you're doing more high-value work. That has been the case since we've been automating business. Completely agree. This is an excellent take on this, and I'm on board with it. I support the viewpoints here, the position. So I think that's all good stuff. But the president certainly needs to, I think, be somewhat sensitive to these layoffs and get out in front of that and have a plan. I don't think it's doom and gloom. The markets don't. They don't see like there's any just major problem in the workforce that companies are letting people go because of bad economic conditions whatsoever. They're just retooling, reorganizing. It's what companies should constantly be doing, honestly, to achieve efficiencies and better serve their not only their customers but their employees. That's how you get wages up. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
If you're feeling anxious. Okay, is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to Middays. So I got some more information here from Commissioner Mike Chaney, Mississippi's insurance commissioner. So we had him on the program earlier. He said that one of his consumer group employees had provided a report to the department. Said a lot of interior damage, sent some images. Additionally, ice dams on roofs that are backing up into the home. Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about that, Rhino. That makes sense. Ice just accumulates. Water can't flow, right? Can't drain. Is
well,
that
I mean, if you've got an indentation or a gully or a gutter or something where sunlight's hitting the top of the roof, but it's not hitting that part of the roof, then if the temperature stayed below freezing, you got ice being the dam there holding back water. And roofs are designed to have the water run off, not sit on top.
Yeah, makes sense. And so it ultimately compromises, right? And it's in the building, in the house or business, what have you. He goes on to say that this group said they try to get some drone footage to the Department of Insurance over the weekend, that there's no need to try to come up there right now. It's almost impossible to navigate. And they're going to try to hook up this weekend. So let's hope by then most of this is melted because, we got another big blast of cold air coming in tomorrow, right? We've got a front moving through that's going to drop the temperatures precipitously once again.
Yeah, like for example, in Oxford, they're looking at above freezing temperatures until likely later tonight, like 9 or 10 o'clock. So hopefully there should be plenty of melting since it's going to be above freezing, getting as high as 46 today.
The commissioner also said, wanted us to know, the state is on top of the ice storm and working closely with local and federal partners. Ice storms are different from wind events and fire events. Response and recovery efforts take longer compared to the other natural disasters.
And we were talking about Tippah County earlier in the week. They've seen an increase in the number of people that have been brought back onto the grid and got their power back on. Earlier in the week, it was up around 12,500 customers without power. That number is down south of 11,000. So another 1,000 people have been hooked back up.
That's good.
It's still going to be slow going.
Yeah. I'm worried about the more vulnerable population, the older folks, and then, of course, younger humans as well, babies that whose bodies aren't as resilient to that sort of low temperatures. You've seen it too. There are reports of families hanging out in their cars, to the extent they got gas, and running their heaters to stay warm, charging their phones and so forth. So, man.
And that is one thing. It can seem a little counterintuitive, but when it comes to the dangers of cold as far as mortality versus the dangers of heat and mortality, across the United States, it's 10, 15-fold the number of deaths that occur due to cold versus the number of deaths that occur due to heat.
Yeah, that's
like
crazy.
In the U.S., I want to say in the last 10, 15 years, there have been somewhere around 4,000 deaths recorded due to heat exposure. And in that same time period, there's been almost 50,000 deaths due to cold exposure.
Wow. That's incredible. Well, you made that point earlier, and so I guess the fact is we humans just aren't quite as resilient to cold, right, as we are, that's the bottom line, as we are heat.
And it's partially because of the physiological reactions to both. I mean, yes, you can get so hot that you're no longer sweating and you are going into heat stroke. But to do that, you have to be exposed to the heat for a prolonged period of time or exert yourself. And in the hot, you don't really want to be exerting yourself, so you're acting against it. Whereas in the cold, you get to a point where you're so cold, you just want to go to sleep.
Right.
You don't want to move to stay warm, and you go to sleep, you might not wake up if you're too cold.
Yeah, totally get it. Well, hopefully we can work through that, and we get this weather out of here, get back to normal, get the power restored. Man, I know lots of folks are doing yeoman's work, trying to help their fellow Mississippians, getting supplies to them, and of course you certainly can't overlook the incredible efforts of our utility workers, our Department of Transportation. I don't think Brad White, the executive director, has slept a wink yet through this ordeal. And I've seen lots of folks that have expressed their discontent over this. I know it's easy for me to say because my problem was short-lived with the power being out, and I don't mean to sound flippant or unaware of this, but I really do feel like they're doing about all they can do. I did have a conversation yesterday, I'll tell you, after the show with a leader in the Senate, the state Senate, about this, and of course they're getting blown up as well. People are talking to their legislators. I understand. And we did discuss, I don't want to talk about that right now, his ideas, by the way, not mine, just bouncing them off of me, of things we potentially could do different to be a better prepared in the future. But, you learn about that when you experience this. It's really hard to anticipate everything, especially an event like this that doesn't come around here but every 30 or 40 years. And the tools and the resources and the technology that's available. Like, who would have thought drones, right? Very effective for this purpose. That didn't exist last time we had an event like this. So
no, you had to get up in a plane to take pictures.
No, exactly. So,
which meant you had to find an airstrip close enough to get over it and get back.
Yeah, man, incredible. So we're definitely just praying for our friends in Mississippi, and we're grateful to all the resources that have been mobilized and deployed to help out. We hope that this comes to a quick end, and we should, of course, do a thorough postmortem, and study and analyze everything that happened, every aspect of it, and figure out how we could do better. No doubt about it. That is small consolation, I get it, to those right now that are suffering, and we don't, again, mean to downplay their fate whatsoever. But we're certainly doing everything we can here to pass on information to you, to get folks on that can do the same, that are more close to the situation, such as the insurance commissioner. I learned a lot from that discussion with him, for example. We've had power company executives. We've had MEMA spokesperson Scott Simmons. The morning shows had folks on as well. I know Richard had the mayor on of Oxford yesterday. So
good things. Had the 8 Days of Hope people out of Tupelo.
Right.
Had the Tulane Church out of Yazoo. Had just about every way we can everybody we can get in touch with that has the spare time to talk to us. We're trying to get them on the air to get the information out to you. So if you are in need, you can receive help. And if you want to help, you can pitch in.
Yeah, I agree. And so I feel like people are doing everything they can to get us going, and I'm appreciative of them. And then, of course, we had Commissioner Tyndall. Forgot about him with the Department of Public Safety. I was somewhat taken aback on his report that they've had to respond to 141 stranded motorists. I'm sure that number has increased substantially since then. That was earlier in the week. And I don't know, man. The state troopers are doing their best to get out there and help out as well. But I think the best thing we could do, and I know this is easier said than done, is sort of stay away from situations where you're at risk of being stranded or having a crash, et cetera, because that just consumes the resources unnecessarily in many cases.
I mean, that's why leading up to it, you had countless warnings to don't travel unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, on the C Spire text line, Gerard, this is Mose. Did y'all see ICE arrested a New Orleans police recruit yesterday? Yeah, I did. Hired in June of last year. Had a valid ID and a Social Security number. The order for this recruit's removal was executed in December. Doesn't have any criminal record, being held with no bond. Mo says maybe their HR department used E-Verify. Yeah, and it's not foolproof, as you know, Rhino. It ain't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not sure if that's what happened here or not. Nonetheless, yeah.
Well, if they're here illegally and they had a Social Security number, likely a stolen social.
And yeah, if it's a full Social Security number and not an ITIN, correct. Yeah, coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From this
Properly set all controls before recording.
All systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Today on In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar, you'll hear an interview with actor Joel Murray, who has been featured in TV series such as 2.5 Men, Mad Men, and who will play legendary broadcaster Pat Sumrall, along with Nick Cage as John Madden in the upcoming movie Madden. You can listen to In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar today at 1 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi. That ought to be a great movie, I think. Maybe the greatest football broadcasting pair ever, right? And I mean, just when you think about just your sort of unemotional play-by-play, give me the facts guy, Sumrall comes to mind. Great knowledge of the game as an ex-player as well. And then Madden.
Infinitely entertaining.
Exactly. Never knew what was coming out of his mouth. And, of course, his insight as a coach, exactly. Incredible. So that ought to be fantastic. I look forward to that. So Steve ought to have fun with those interviews. Your attention, please. Processing fees. This is from the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Processing fees charged to consumers. A quick Google search shows that it is illegal to charge a fee for the use of a debit card. However, businesses everywhere are doing just that. Help, please advise. I think the first thing we have to acknowledge is there is a bit of a distinction between a credit and a debit card, and that you can also use your debit card for credit. I
think technically it's still illegal if you charge a surcharge or a debit card used as a credit card.
So I'm not right, but I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to as a surcharge. I went a bit down a rabbit hole on the break on that. So I'm not convinced that. And then there's a convenience fee, right? That may be construed different as a surcharge.
That actually is in the language as far as it being illegal. You cannot change the name of the surcharge or the transaction fee to a convenience fee.
Well, I guess my response is I don't know how they're getting away with it, and I'm quite a bit...
because of the old adage, you can't stop us all.
Well, it could be, but, I mean, this is widespread. It's ubiquitous. So you would think there'd be major consumer groups that would be raising hell about this and taking cases up to the courts. I don't know. It'd start with at the state level, for example. So, good question, though.
I mean, the payment processing, the processors in the industry, like MasterCard and Visa, their guidance is if you believe you have been illegally charged a surcharge for use of your debit card in a transaction, that you should, at first, ask the merchant, hey, is this legal? If they refuse to refund it or debate the legality, just document the conversation.
Okay, interesting.
And then you move it up the chain. You can take it to the bank that you got the debit card from or the issuer and let them know. They may reimburse the charge. They may refund it.
There you go.
If you don't get any satisfaction from them, you report to the card network. So if you've got a Visa debit card, you would holler at Visa. They've got an online form. You can fill it out. If that doesn't work, then you're asked to file a formal complaint with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau or contact your state's AG's office.
Man. Well,
I would imagine the reason it's just so prevalent is because nobody wants to jump through those hoops over a couple bucks.
I think you're probably right. You could spend a whole bunch of money pursuing such a case and really get very little in return. So, I don't know. That's it's interesting, though. Thanks for bringing that up. No, it wouldn't be an issue for the state auditor. It's just not. And I don't want to spend money on the state auditor going down that rabbit hole. It's more of an issue for the attorney general, not the state auditor. It's the state auditor needs to stay, in my view, as do all agencies, in their swim lane and perform the duties to which they are assigned and ascribed by law.
Like
that would
on
be
the
one of
ceasefire
them.
text line, Johnny in West Point. From my experience, when I was in the business, the banks charge a percentage of the transaction. All they're doing is passing that fee on. If they added that fee to their price, that would be completely legal.
Yeah.
But if you go to the counter with a set price and then they tack on that extra percentage, that's illegal, technically.
Well, if they're passing it on, it wouldn't be a surcharge. If it's just a pass-through, I don't know that it would be considered a surcharge. I think if it exceeded it, that would be a surcharge. I'm speculating.
That's against the law even for credit cards.
Okay. You can't
make a profit with your credit card charge.
Agree with that, and that's what I'm saying. So that I think it depends on what they're defining as a surcharge here, and that's where you could get really wrapped up in lots of semantics and debate for sure.
But that's also why you have at like some convenience stores, they'll have a little sign that has a minimum transaction fee.
Yeah, I've seen that too. And you've got the cash versus credit price at the pump, right? When you're buying gas. I mean, that's been around for a long time.
And that's another thing that's legal. You can legally charge a discounted cash price.
Right.
You just can't charge extra for the use of a debit card.
Okay. So that sort of means that may have that so-called surcharge built in. You could argue that. From my experience, this is Johnny in West Point. When I was in business, the banks charge a percentage of the transaction. All they're doing, yeah, that's what we said, Johnny. Yeah, I agree. They're just passing it on. The question is that considered for purposes of this law a surcharge? Is passing it on, passing it through dollar for dollar, no more, nothing in excess of the amount they're then remitting to the bank for the credit card company for that transaction? I agree. So. Interesting discussion, though. Let's see. In my experience, this is Ike in Saltillo. In my experience in confronting the banks and the vendors, they both say it's the company that provides a transaction machine at the counter is the one charging those fees. Well, yeah, the merchant's not retaining that uplift. That is absolutely true. That's going to the network operators. And there's multiple parties often involved in that. Yeah, definitely. It depends on what the definition of is, says Derek in Greenwood. We'll never forget that one, will we? Right? Oh, that is forever ensconced in American culture. No doubt about it. They got a little problem there, don't they, the Clintons?
Yeah, they refused to show up, and now they're going to get in trouble for it.
Man, last I checked, I think they're in contempt of Congress, right?
I'm fairly certain members of the first Trump administration went to jail for ignoring a subpoena to Congress.
Correct. Let's be consistent. I think that's the mark of solid government and solid law. Consistency. Critical. Just for fun, want to bet on how Rand Paul, this is on the 228, votes on the funding bill? I'll give you 20-1 odds, but I'd take the nay vote. Yeah, so, we hadn't talked about that today, but the Democrats are poised to trigger another government shutdown if the White House Republicans don't meet their demands for ICE reform. That's what they're saying. They're threatening to block the legislation that would fund the Department of Homeland Security and a bunch of other agencies are part of that legislation as well. That could bring the government a little bit closer, at least to a partial shutdown, if they can't reach some sort of consensus among the parties, the Republicans, the White House, and the Senate Democrats. So Chuck Schumer, isn't he something, said Wednesday that Democrats won't provide needed votes until U.S. immigration and customs enforcement is reined in and overhauled. So I did catch some remarks this morning from Tom Homan, the border czar, in Minneapolis now, on site, on location. He was his usual no-nonsense self. And he made a great point that I think gets overlooked here, Rhino, even to the people who notwithstanding this tragic fatality that occurred with the shooting by ICE agents of Preddy. But he made the point, we're removing bad people from your community. That's what we're here to do. We're finding the bad guys that crossed over this border, and the president has instructed me to take them out of the country. He made it clear that was his priority in removing illegals from this country. Let's get the bad folks out first. And he's made the point countless times that these other countries did, in fact, dump some of the worst in their culture and their nation and their society on us, coming right back.
Poly up a Mississippi.
Check it out. Let's do this. The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
The hurt doesn't show, but the pain still grows. Some stranger to you and me.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. Give the folks the report you just gave me about the ice accumulation.
Yeah, they released a report last night that was the Freezing Rain Accumulation National Analysis. And from January 23 to January 23 to January 26th, the maximum ice accumulation was 1.25 inches, and it occurred just east of Oxford.
Man. And you said the scale only goes to 2.
Yeah, the ice scale they use only goes up to 2 inches. So
that is a bunch
pretty
of
high
ice.
up on the scale.
Wow. So this just in, the state of Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz has said that he is agreeing to greater cooperation with the federal government. Border Czar Tom Homan, speaking this morning in Minnesota. And he says, does Walz, we're not surrendering our mission at all. We're just doing it smarter. He says this will pave the way for a reduction of federal agents. Well, I would agree that if the state government and local law enforcement would enforce the law and not coddle the illegal aliens in their state and communities, okay, I could buy that. Then that lessens the need. But the question is he serious about this? Will he?
I mean, for a couple of nights in a row now, they've sent the state police in to arrest protesters that refuse to disperse.
They have. I agree. And even Holman said we've made a lot of progress in the last 3 days. He said that as he began his speech.
Calling them protesters is really a misnomer. They're really an organized paramilitary group.
That's exactly right. And now we've learned that Mr. Preddy, had a history of that as well. Right? That's surfaced. They're
spitting on officers, acting aggressively. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just, it's their cause. It's their mission in life. It's how they achieve some distorted form of relevance.
It's also how they fill that hole because they believe religion is for superstitious people.
Oh, okay. I see.
It's the woke religion.
Jeez. So then there have been several reports. We talked about this yesterday quite a bit concerning this frame-by-frame, I should say this, I've seen a frame-by-frame report of this spraying of material on Ilhan Omar. And it does raise a lot of questions. And some folks on our text line said, yeah, they think it was staged. You and I talked about it. I was kind of 50-50. I'm leaning more towards I think it was staged after reviewing several reports. And, so the security, did they drop the ball or did they, for example? And the timing is very suspicious, right? Right before she said something about Kristi Noem and ICE, there wasn't a lot of panic, after I think about it. Like, you would have a panic on something like that because it could be some sort of deadly material. At a minimum, harm a person, which is a cause for panic. And then there is a suspicious moment that has been pointed out by those who have really analyzed the video of the event that shows Ilhan Omar giving this sprayer a head nod. That looks a little suspicious, almost like say, "Hey, come on, it's time now. It's where I'm ready for it. It's the timing we're looking for." So, and if you were really out to harm someone with this material, you would spray them on their clothes, in the torso of their body. Wouldn't you hit them in the face? That's where their skin and their eyes and their nose are exposed, their ears,
That's where the
their
acid
mouth.
attacks are usually aimed from her part of the world.
And then, perhaps the most convincing, no medical checkup after this. Wouldn't you want to say, let's make sure everything's still good here?
Well, little to no reaction on her part is also pretty damning.
Agree. Just
if
kind
somebody
of,
advances towards you, you usually instinctively assume a defensive posture, or you raise an arm or a hand.
Totally reflexive.
The only time she raised an arm was after she advanced on him like she was going to hit him.
Yeah, it's totally weird. I'm with you, and it's at a minimum at this point, it's highly suspicious. I think we could put it in that category.
Considering how readily she lies, I do not give her any benefit of the doubt.
It's sad but true. As I've said before, this is a person who has greater respect and greater affection and deference to her home country than the one that she's elected to serve. I don't think there's any question about that. That just bothers the heck out of me that such a person is sitting with considerable honor and privilege to serve in the United States House of Representatives. That's really bad. Time for Fox News, SuperTalk News, top of the hour. On the other side, it's Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays on this
Friday Eve.
We welcome now Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association. Hey, Gordon, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Gerard, thanks for having me. Good afternoon, since it's just after 12.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. So I've run into you a couple of times in the Capitol. You know, I've had some kind of interesting discussions about things going on that affect the banking industry, their policy at the federal and the state level. As always, interesting times for sure. Thought it'd be good to get you on and kind of provide us some insight on that. Before we get started, you were listening to our conversation about credit card and debit card fees charged by merchants. Can you clarify that for us, Gordon?
Yeah, thanks. And I thought it was a good conversation. One point that got missed when y'all were talking about it are the contracts that merchants and the card networks enter into. And so a lot of times, if a retailer is in a contract with Visa and another contract with MasterCard, there's probably a contractual limit on how much surcharge they can add on top of the card.
Okay.
And so there's some statutes and some rules around that, and there's also some contractual issues about that. And I found in talking to my members that often, particularly for smaller retailers that don't have in-house general counsel, they're not always aware of what those limits are in their contract. So if you're a mom and pop retailer like my parents were, maybe check your contract and make sure you're not charging more than you're allowed to under the contract. Occasionally, I'm told, those card companies will do sort of secret shoppers, and they'll walk into small retailers and they'll see if they're charging more than the contract allows them to. So
yeah, because
probably worth, if you're a retailer, checking that.
Gotcha. So interesting. So is there a distinction between a debit and a credit card as far as these fees?
Yeah, there are, and there was a part of Dodd-Frank called the Durbin Amendment that put some restrictions on debit cards that do not apply to credit cards.
Okay.
And so you may, for example, be very happy with like your reward program from your credit card. And you may think, why doesn't my debit card have a similar reward program? Well, it's because there are caps on debit exchange that don't apply to credit cards.
Okay.
And so, you may not get cash back on a debit card purchase the way you can get cash back on a credit card purchase. There's some pretty significant differences in the federal laws around what's called an interchange fee, which is the fees that the merchant bank and the consumer bank sort of pay each other as the transactions pass.
Yeah.
So there's some limitations on that. It's actually one of the sort of big issues that's being rediscussed in Congress right now. Like there's an argument that Dick Durbin wants to, before he leaves Congress, also get that cap to apply to credit cards. And we would argue that's a really bad idea. It will reduce the benefits that most people are used to receiving on their credit cards, like cash back, like rewards, like freedom to wipe payments occasionally, right?
Yeah.
So you take those caps are price controls, and we're probably going to talk about a different type of credit card price control in a minute. But that's what those are. They're price controls, and when you put them in place, it reduces what you can get for the amount of money you spend on the service you're purchasing.
Makes sense.
At the end of the day, those fees are there to allow the service to occur.
I guess, just thinking about the cost component, I really don't see how the costs involved in processing a debit transaction are different than a credit transaction. It's the same infrastructure, same administration. I mean, all the above, right? All the various cost components, really no different.
Yeah. Yeah, for those on the radio, I'm nodding my head in agreement, and for those watching on YouTube, you're watching me. It's exactly the same. And so it's really bad policy, I think, to have one set of caps for one type of card, but not the same set of caps and really we probably the caps we have found that's been in law for 15 years now. We've seen, negative impact on checking accounts and on debit card benefits and features that don't apply to credit card. And so extending these sort of failed caps to credit cards would just have a negative impact on consumers that use those credit cards.
Okay, so let's dig into kind of the meat and the core of what we wanted to talk to you today about, and that, of course, is the president's announcement a couple of weeks ago that he'd like to see the credit card companies cap the interest rates that they charge. Now, there's no law to that effect. I don't even know if there was a formal executive order. It seemed more to me, Gordon, like a request than anything else. Can you kind of clarify where we are?
Yeah, the president sort of issued a request and sort of said, I'd like to see this done by a certain time. So I think that time passed. I think the deadline he asked for was sometime last week. So yeah. I don't know I don't really know what happens next. What I can say, the idea that we're going to put a 10% rate cap in place isn't a new idea. There's been a bill filed in Congress for the last several Congresses. There was a bill filed last February that's about a year old called S381. That is a Bernie Sanders bill. Bernie Sanders co-sponsored that with Senator Merkley from Oregon, Senator Gillibrand from New York, who are not very conservative. I would say not very pro-business senators, and then Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri.
Yeah.
And so we've had a lot of time to digest what's in that legislative proposal, adding this is a rate cap, right? A rate cap is a price control. It's a government mandated. This is how much you can charge for the product or service you're selling. I know you're familiar with the name Thomas Sowell, who's a really sort of famous conservative economist. I think he was asked one time, what do you think about price controls? And he said price controls are a little bit like saying to a patient who's got a fever, to treat the fever, we're just going to break the thermometer. And so, that's, I think, kind of a good example of what a price control is. It really doesn't address the problem. It just creates different challenges for the patient. And what we know about S381, because we've had a lot of time to study it, is if it were to become law, or if the president were to pursue an executive order similar to S381, you would see significant reduction in credit availability, right? Because if you put a price cap in place, then that means you're limiting the ability of the people that are providing that service to provide that service. And it's really fascinating. The study sort of says at the state of Mississippi level, somewhere between 78 and 89% of Mississippians that use credit cards would see a reduction in their credit availability through those cards. Several percent, like a very high percent, would probably lose access to credit cards altogether. And it also says, and this is fascinating to me, that even for people that have a credit score of over 600, somewhere between 75 and 85% of those people would see a decline in their credit availability from their cards. And so you kind of think about putting a price cap in place. There's certainly an unintended consequence of a reduction in credit here. And I should probably also say this too, Gerard. Credit cards for Mississippi banks, for my members, they're not a major line of business, right? Most people that use credit cards are using a card that's issued by a bank that specializes in credit cards, right? Yeah. Citibank, Chase Bank, Capital One, the What's in Your Wallet card, right? My members at local banks in Mississippi have a credit card. Most of them have a credit card if a customer wants it, but it's not a major line of business.
Okay.
So the way we look at it when I talk to the bankers is really what's the downstream economic impact for Mississippi if 89% of people that use credit cards see a reduction in how much money they can spend. That takes liquidity out of the Mississippi economy, right? And it probably won't really impact the banks, but you think about the tourism industry in the summer, right? If you use your credit card to go on vacation, maybe you don't go to Gulfport or Biloxi anymore. Maybe you stay closer to home, or maybe when you go to the beach, you don't go to the restaurants. You bring your own food in a cooler, right? So, cause you got less money to spend. What does that mean for hotels? What does it mean for restaurants? What does it mean for retailers if almost 90% of the people in the state that use credit cards see a reduction in how much money they can spend? It will have a direct impact on cash flow, and it will have a downstream impact on a lot of businesses. And that's when we're looking at it, really what we're concerned about.
Every report I've seen, to your point, Gordon, projects 80 to 86% of those that currently have credit cards would see some change. Many would actually lose their credit cards altogether. And the other risk, of course, is that rewards programs and some of the other the benefits you have with a credit card would go away because those cost the credit card companies money. And they're able to do that given the rates. I mean, it's all built into the model to sort of being a member, of the credit card, if you will. We got a break right here.
That's right, yeah.
Can you hang around? We can keep talking.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Great. We got Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association. Another one before we go I thought about and come back to the next segment is U.S. Bank. Gordon, I bet we got lots of card holders in the state of Mississippi, right?
So,
yeah, that's a big focuses on that. Coming right back with Gordon Fellows.
Les Paul guitar, won't you take it, Mr. Banker? Won't you bury my papa for me? Oh, Mr. Banker, please.
The One Body. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We've got Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association, with us. So, Gordon, where do you see this going? I mean, so no law. Honestly, you pointed out that there are some sponsors of such a law that would cap credit card interest rates. I thought Liz Warren was in on that as well. Maybe it's a different piece of legislation. I'm super.
He supports the idea, but he doesn't have her name on the bill, which is interesting.
Okay, yeah, it is. Yeah. Super disappointed in Josh Hawley. I just got to say, and I've made that very clear on this program that he needs to change parties, as far as I'm concerned, because he seems to be anti-business, anti-profit, anti-free markets, pro-price controls, pro-redistribution. He fits right in with Bernie and Liz in that ilk. But the president, you're right, kind of issued a sort of a soft ultimatum, right? To have this in place by the 22nd, I believe it was, of January last week.
That's right.
The date passed. Nothing happened. I don't think he can decree it through executive order. I don't think that would stand a legal test. And I just don't see this making its way through Congress and to his desk. And he also wanted it for a year, which sort of suggests he's trying to kind of soften the financial difficulties that Americans are experiencing in advance of the midterms. Many people, as you know, vote with their pocketbooks. But it's another situation where if government gets involved, it may look good on the surface and maybe in the short term, oh, wow, my interest is down, but then bad starts happening. You get the notice in the mail that, hey, you're no longer credit worthy to have a credit card. Yeah. That wouldn't be good.
Right, that's right. And probably the most likely thing for most Mississippians, if there were to be some sort of action, is to see kind of a very pretty close to immediate reduction in their available credit on their cards, right? So if you got a $5,000 limit, maybe it drops to $1,000, $2,500. So again, the concern that we have when I talk to bankers about this isn't so much on what it means for the banks, because we're not issuing a lot of cards, but we're really worried about what the downstream impacts for businesses in the state would be.
100%.
It will change people's cash flow.
100%. And something else I thought about, Gordon, that you may see should this become law somehow, is an increase in the annual fee to have the credit card.
That's right.
May see an increase in the minimum payment, right, to hold those credit cards, right?
And I think that's right. And then also probably tighter standards, right? Like on the underwriting, or how credit available are you? And it would be unfortunate for marginal folks who this is really their only source of consumer credit to get pushed out of a responsible product like a credit card. And that you probably see some of that. And
as you well know, in credit scoring, in FICO scoring, if all of a sudden you didn't have revolving credit in your credit mix on your credit report, that could affect your ability to buy a house. Yeah, your credit score is going down. Your credit score would decline.
Yeah, that's right. So, all of this also, and just not to change the subject, but all this is really why I'm really proud of the legislature for talking about financial literacy as much this year as they're talking about financial literacy. This is we've been long worried that folks coming out of the schools in Mississippi aren't really familiar with why credit score is important, right, and how to build a credit score early as a young adult and what that means for you in your future. And as the housing market gets harder to deal with, that credit score becomes even more important. So one of the things that's happening, and it happened yesterday at the legislature, is there's a lot of talk in both chambers about making financial literacy a graduation requirement, which is something we've been talking about for over a decade. It's something a lot of people have been talking about for over a decade. It's part of the Speaker's House bill too. But there's also a standalone bill in the House that passed yesterday out of the Education Committee, and it's still got to go through the Appropriations Committee. There's a bill in the Senate Education Committee that passed last week, and then yesterday the Senate Universities Committee reported a bill that would create some additional requirements for college students. If you're at a community college or first-year freshman at a university, making sure you're learning about how to manage your money, how to build a credit score. All that stuff's really important too. So, I kind of think of these as very sort of similar issues. Why is a rate cap important? Why is it dangerous? Because it's a price control. If you don't really understand what a credit score is, how to build your credit score, the importance of sort of how establishing yourself and your credit history you may not really understand why this something that sort of sounds like a good idea is really not a good idea, and how it'll have a negative impact on you.
And something else, Gordon, I hope that the legislature is considering that if we're going to implement this financial literacy program, we got to have teachers, right, that understand that subject matter, that can teach it. And I'm not sure we've got enough of those within our ranks of teachers, certainly in K through 12.
Yeah, and there's groups that help with that, right? The Mississippi Council on Economic Education does a great job of training teachers. We have a program called Banker in Every Classroom where we send bankers and partner with teachers throughout the year, and then go in for over a week in November and really spend a lot of time talking about practical implications for how to be a good financial steward of your money with high school students and lower. So there's some of that going on. Certainly the Department of Education will have a really important sort of role to play in getting more of that rolled out if this becomes law. Okay.
What else are you focused on this legislative session, Gordon? Overall, the banks, certainly across the country, I assume the same is true in Mississippi, seem to be in pretty good shape. I think there was a lot of doom and gloom when we had Silicon Valley fail and so forth. But, just listening to I like to pay attention to Jamie Dimon. Bruce Moynihan at Bank of America. I mean, they run the biggest banks in the country, and they're brilliant executives, in my view. They seem to be pretty optimistic, but they are warning about our debt and the dollar's value.
Yeah. The debt is a scary thing, and it's something we talk about a lot with our members. It's for Congress to really fix that, they're going to have to fix, the entitlement programs, and those are hard things to fix. And Congress is pretty divided. It's pretty hard to fix difficult challenges in a pretty divided Congress. So, we worry about that in the long term. As far as sort of what's going on with the state legislature, the state's banking laws are really pretty good. We always have to do a few little technical tweaks as technology evolves. For example, I think you'll like this. We have a statute that sort of says what an ATM is, and I think most of your audience knows what an ATM is. We do not have a statute for an interactive teller machine, which is the type of kiosk that you may use and press a button and you interact with somebody through like a Zoom screen. And so we got to update the ATM laws to sort of say, well, an ITM is like an ATM. So there's some things like that we have to do. Financial literacy is a really big piece that I think everybody cares a lot about. There's another bill that we've been interested in that I think you'll appreciate, a cyber liability protection bill. So how much banks and hospitals and other businesses invest in their cyber protection. But there are a lot of businesses around the state that aren't as familiar with what the adequate national standards are for cyber protection 100%. In the state. So we've sort of said, here's a really good idea, Mississippi. If we provide some legal incentives for small businesses to make sure they're investing in cybersecurity, you qualify with the right applicable federal standards for whatever your business is, then you get some legal protection. We think that's a really important incentive for businesses around the state to think like banks and like hospitals and really upping their game in terms of cyber protection, protecting their customer data, and protecting the folks that they do the transactions with them. So that got close last year. It died in conference last year, but that's another thing that has a broader impact beyond just sort of technical banking changes that we've been involved in.
And I assume that information would be publicly available, right? That would be the purpose of it, so that I, as a consumer, would know how well protected you are.
Yeah, that's right. And there are, depending on what business you're in, what you do, you may have like a CIS or CISA or NIST standard you have to comply with. You may have to comply with the Patriot Act standard if you're a manufacturer with a global supply chain. You got to comply with HIPAA rules. If you're a hospital, you got to comply with Gramm-Leach-Bliley if you're a lender, right? Yep. So there's a whole bunch of different standards that apply to different businesses differently. And the argument that we were making to the legislature is we ought to incentivize as many businesses as we can to comply with those standards. The risk of cyber attack, fraud through the internet is so great. We need to, and it's going to get worse through AI, I think. And I think you know more about AI than I do. we need to start now incentivizing businesses to make investments.
I think it's a great idea. Just before you go, a couple of seconds. In my industry for data centers, you don't see that a lot with the giant data center operators, but there's a standard for that. There's an audit, and our customers used to say, hey, I want to see your audit before I put my data in here, right? So similar deal here.
Right.
Applying to,
that's right.
I think
that's
I like
exactly
it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Gordon Fellows, president of the Mississippi Bankers Association. Appreciate it, Gordon. Thanks, man.
Good to talk to you. Thanks for the opportunity.
You bet. Coming right back, folks.
Come on. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Tom in Lumberton asks, price controls don't work well. Let me help you out there, Tom. How about let's delete the word well? I hear you, my friend. Price controls don't work, in my view, at all. Has there ever been a case, Rhino, in history, recorded history, where they've been shown to work? And, of course, it depends on how you define work, right? So maybe you could point to World War II, where we had some price wage controls, worked in that. Perhaps they did contribute to the war effort. But think about this. We may have won the war, but we sustained a fair amount of pain during that period, economic pain in the country, because it took a significant amount of money and more importantly, people that gave their lives to win that war. But those were swiftly reversed.
I was just trying to see if there was even a technicality where it technically worked, because it usually works in the very short term.
Yes.
And then completely falls apart in the middle to long term. And I was wondering, well, did the USSR implement any price controls right at the end before they just cratered, to where technically they got all the benefit and then they just went away? And I can't find any, so no, they've never worked.
I do remember as a child, this is interesting, and I wonder if others had the same experience, but, during the Cold War, that got very close to being a hot war when I was growing up, I remember my mother telling me about how fortunate we are and were at the time. I'm in grade school to live in this country, and I couldn't quite comprehend, where we get to worship as we please. But if it was found out you were a Christian in Russia, right, you're dead for the most part. And then
if you had the best case scenario, if you had connections or a modicum of power, you get to spend the rest of your days in the gulag.
That's right, instead of off with your head. But and talking about just the simple pleasures we're accustomed to here, like, except for when we have an ice storm, you go to the grocery store, the shelves are stocked. Even in the 60s, that was the case. But not in Russia, right? Who could forget? You could go look it up today, the images of long lines of people for a morsel of food to survive. And I remember my mother telling me about that, and I was like, well, why do they do that, Mom? In Russia, don't they get whatever it is they're doing doesn't work? I didn't understand all that back then, of course. But, God bless my mother for pointing that out and making me have an appreciation for our bounty in this country. And maybe that influenced me in such a way that I'm extremely pro-free markets and free enterprise and anti-socialized central planning, such as price controls, is an example. But Tom in Lumberton, back to his statement here. Why are rates so high? How do we get more competition among card issuers? Well, and I hear you, Tom. Rates do look high, but that's what's required to produce, again, Rhino, some second-order thinking, to produce an acceptable level of profit by these companies, to ensure they have sufficient capital to loan the money out. I don't know how to explain that other than that, but it's this situation like, why are they so high? Well, define high. And I'm not being argumentative here. The market sorted that out. You know how the rates would come down? It's the same way that you could see a drop-off in the explosion of data centers. Stop using the cards. And I'm not preaching or lecturing to our audience here. I'm just being truthful. What's the latest I saw? What's the credit card debt? Like $1.2 trillion or something that Americans are holding? And I'm not lecturing them. I'm just saying that you want the price of a good or service to fall? Decrease the demand. Let the market do that. The fact is, they charge that rate because they can, because we pay it. Right? You don't want data centers? Quit using all this stuff. As long as we keep using it, we're going to need more data centers. And I couldn't help but think about the role they've played in our recovery efforts in this storm. You talk about drones. Where does that data go? What are the systems that are used to control those drones? Where are they housed and powered? All the above. So it's our insatiable appetite because there's value in that. And if people don't want to pay credit card rates, and I know there's a lot of people out there saying, you know, I pay mine off when I get it. And I know I've talked to a lot of people, and God bless you. You know that's the way you manage your credit. But there's folks out there sitting on $1.2 trillion right now that don't. That's a lot, right? And then you got people that go to college. They get mad because they're saddled with this debt. You're like, well, then don't borrow money to go to college. You know, figure something else out. That's the solution to that problem. Easy Feet Mobile Foot Nail says, amen on financial literacy. Yeah, I do applaud our legislature for this move. I absolutely agree. And I can't remember the exact formal name of the organization, but Selena Schwartzfeger, who's in my Rotary, runs it, the Economic Literacy Organization. They do a fantastic job as well. I think it is critical. I think it is great. And Gordon is so right. Just the basic understanding of credit and credit scoring, big time needed. The average person on the street doesn't know all that. Generally speaking, don't need to, but it sure would help.
And most of the time what they know is
wrong.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. I've had that discussion. I got interested in this back in about, I think, 89. I may have told the story. I went to buy a vehicle, and, of course, I was financing that vehicle. I couldn't afford it, and I got turned down. They ran a credit report. Now, this is before the Internet. You couldn't go check your own credit scores and stuff. Like, what? Said, yeah, you have this $300 collection on your credit card and on your credit report. And if you got a collection, that just means that there's a creditor that says you owe them money, and they filed whatever they call it for that to recover that money, and they've made it a legal matter, and it ends up on your credit card. It's like a credit report. Like, I don't have a reason not to pay $300, and it was from a physician for my son. I think I told this story before, but it's connected to this situation. And at that point, I went and took care of that, and they were embarrassed. It was the collections agency that they turned it over to, who were just bullies at the end of the day. But at that point, I got curious. How in the world do they calculate these credit scores? And didn't have the Internet to go search back then, but I did learn a lot about that and could probably give a class on how credit scores are calculated. And you're right. Most people I talk to, no, that's not how it's done. It's what they think. I pay my card off every time I get the statement. Right, but you max it out, right? Well, that's why your credit score sucks. Because the credit card company and the scoring process doesn't care that you paid it off before the next one. What they care about is what that balance was when it was reported. And if it's maxed out, that's a signal to potential prospective lenders, this person's in trouble. They maxed out their credit card. You don't get to say, yeah, but I paid it off 2 days later. They don't care. You know exactly what I'm talking about here. That's how this works.
And when it comes to credit cards and credit card usage, I go back to an analogy I've made about insulin. People talk about the price of insulin, and it's so expensive. And yes, there are expensive insulins because you're paying for convenience. You're paying for insulin in a pen, or you're paying for an extended release insulin, so you're paying for the convenience. Similarly with credit cards.
Good point.
A lot of the price of doing business, the cost of doing business with credit cards, is the convenience. If you only ever use your credit card for large purchases.
Yep.
So you got $500 you want to spend, you put it on the card and then pay it off.
Yep.
Some people will do that. They'll pay it off all the next bill. Some people will look at it and go, well, that's $500. I'll pay $100 a month, and I'll pay the interest. You can do that, and it's convenient because you're already approved for the card, and you're swiping that card, and the transaction goes through. You could very well go to your bank, say, hey, I'm making this purchase. I've had an account here this long. Can I have this much money for that purchase?
Yep.
And you're more than likely going to get a much better interest rate than if you swiped your card. But it's not convenient to have to go to the bank,
sit
down with somebody,
right.
Get all the paperwork filled out to get the money for that transaction versus just swipe and done.
That's a great point. You pay a premium for the convenience. It's no different than going to a C-store to buy some product you could buy at the superstore, right? You're going to pay a premium for the convenience. That's why they call them convenience stores. Great point. That's absolutely true. Also, Casey Waters, one of our regular listeners from Ocean Springs on the school board, I had this story to share today, and she just sent it to me as well. And it has to do with California, where they have state law that basically requires their K-12 educational institutions to conceal information about students who have the idea of transitioning their genders. The Department of Ed is coming after them. Good. Coming right back.
The best made-to-order lunch.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so awesome.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
It goes without saying, but please be careful on the roads out there. I know, just looking at some major roads, this posted by DOTD, this was actually yesterday, and I don't know that this situation's changed whatsoever. I haven't seen any updates, Rhino. It's I-55 from Senatobia down to Grenada, right, closed. And also New Albany to Holly Springs. Highway 32 there, Interstate 32, I believe, also closed. And I'm sure there are others, but...
there are still, as of a few hours ago, so it could be updated. They just haven't put it out yet. But as of 10 o'clock this morning, 23 counties in the north and northwest of the Magnolia State are still reporting ice on roads and bridges.
Man.
So MDOT is advising emergency travel only in the area and use extreme caution if you must travel. And there are still closures on I-55 northbound from Batesville and Como. That's US 278 East exit 243A and Mississippi 310 exit 257. And I-22 is closed in both directions from Red Banks at exit 21 to the Tennessee state line.
What a mess. Mike from Corinth, about a little over an hour ago, said, I was trying to go to Memphis from Corinth on Highway 72, made it fine to 1 mile west of Highway 7 and 72 intersection. There's a roundabout. Sat for an hour and never moved. Decided to turn around, go home, since I was in a good spot to do so. Wow. Mississippi and Tennessee were estimating a 3-hour wait from that point. Well, I think you made the right decision, Mike. I'm sorry you didn't get to go to your destination, but that's probably the best decision. You could have been stranded or had some sort of accident, crash, as the state troopers like to call it. We don't want that. Before we went to break, Casey, a regular listener from the Ocean Springs area on the school board down there. She's passionate about education policy. She's pointed out just how terrible are the American Counselors Association, I think. I may have gotten that wrong, but the American Society of Counselors, something like that, school counselors. But they're a left-wing loon group is what they are, that Mississippi still has a relationship with. We've called for legislators to end that relationship, to force the DOE to end it. And she sent us a video. Becky Pringle delivered a keynote speech at the 2024 National Education Association conference. She was the president at the time, and it was all political rhetoric. They don't talk about education. Randy Weingarten, the other group, they don't talk about that. They're all about politics. And of course, she also sent us a report. I saw this as well, Casey, where the Department of Education, Linda McMahon, they're going after California because California is actually violating federal law. They're bucking federal law in allowing schools to conceal information about children who have indicated an interest in changing their genders. Can't tell their parents about that. That's horse hockey. You're not. Students are still the children of families. They're like on loan to you to take care of, if you will, during the day at school. You don't run their lives. That's out of control. I'm also need to report that several other states have opted in to the president's school choice program. That's the $1,700 credit, federal tax credit one can receive to make a a contribution to what would be built as a scholarship granting organization, an SGO. The governor has opted in the state of Mississippi, and so we await more information about the SGOs and how to make those contributions. But when that's up and running, and then those organizations would dole out the grants, if you will, to applicants. That whole process yet to be defined, but that's the concept, that's the framework. 28 states now, Rhino, have opted into this program. I point this out because, here in the state of Mississippi, there were some complaints, some grousing from the anti-school choice people that, once again, the same old talking point is, oh, my gosh, they're going to siphon off money from the public schools because these folks are going to get these scholarships, right, attend private schools. It's just kind of sickening to keep hearing that sort of old, tired argument. Florida just did. I was a little concerned about Florida. Where was DeSantis, or Governor DeSantis? But he has, and noticeably in kind of the middle of the country, the state of Kansas has yet to opt in. You would expect the blue states, the coastal states, which is what I'm seeing on the map. No, they haven't opted in. Illinois hasn't opted in. Kentucky, it's got a Democrat governor, believe it or not, hasn't. And by the way, before we go, the president just posted on his Truth Social a message really blasting Jerome Too Late Powell. We've been talking about interest rates and financing and banks all day. He said he refused to cut the rates even though he has absolutely no reason to keep them high. He's hurting our country. It's national security. We should have a substantially lower rate now that even this moron admits inflation is no longer a problem or a threat. He's costing us all hundreds of billions of dollars of interest expense, et cetera, et cetera. He goes on to say because of all this tariff income, we should be able to do that. I think that could be debated, but I get his point for sure. We're out of here today. Back with you tomorrow. Stay safe, and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.